Hello Opportunity Fund graduate students. We're so glad you're joining us for this first video, which is about choosing a program of study in the U.S. I'm Rachel Wilson from the U.S. Embassy Education USA, and I'll be talking to you just a bit today about the different factors involved in making your final lists of programs in the U.S. and then choosing the programs to which you will apply. So the first thing to just comment is that you have many options for study in the U.S. So there's a broad range of institutions. We generally give the number of around 4,500 higher ed institutions in the U.S. That's a lot of schools, and that's a lot to narrow down when you're choosing your list. So out of that, around 1,700 of these institutions have graduate programs. The rest are a combination of community colleges and undergraduate universities. So out of those 1,700 programs, there will be a smaller number of programs in your area of study. And that will differ depending on if you study petroleum engineering or if you study music. But there will be a certain number of programs that would be a good fit for you. So the first thing to do is make a preliminary list of anywhere between 10 to 15 options for institutions. This can vary depending on how many programs you find that really fit what you're looking for, but this is so you give your first list to your advisor and you can have more options in case you might not meet some of the minimum requirements of the other institutions. Through the Opportunity Fund program, you'll be applying to between 5 to 8 schools, depending on how many you find and how good your chances are maybe of getting admission and funding in those schools. From those 5 to 8 universities, you will get admission letters, hopefully from all of the 5 to 8 schools, and then you'll narrow down to what is your final decision based on your academic priorities, based on the financial options that are available. And that will hopefully be the institution that you will be attending in the U.S. So the reason actually that we're doing this webinar first and before any of the other topics is because choosing the programs to which you will apply is really fundamental to the rest of your process. So once you choose your programs and see what the minimum TOEFL and GRE scores are required, see what other types of requirements that you have to complete to apply and to be accepted, that will really determine a lot of parts of the process. The deadlines by which you need to apply, the types of financial options. This is going to determine maybe how quickly you will need to take the TOEFL, if you need to take the GRE, what kind of other financial options we will need to be looking for. So that's the reason that we do this webinar first. And it's also just fundamental. I think it's worth saying that choosing your universities and making this list is not necessarily an easy process. This is going to take some time on your part, some commitment on your part. We know some of you have already started to work on these lists, and that's wonderful. We want you to start soon, and this may take several revisions. This may take several drafts of the list, and there may be negotiations with your advisor and with you based on what, in their experience, they have seen with other grantees and other students in past years. And so the recommendation and the invitation is to really start as soon as possible, and hopefully with this short presentation we'll give you some tools to help you. So in terms of defining your priorities, how do we even start to make this list? So step number 1, you need to figure out what you're looking for and what you want. We kind of divide the categories by which you can make this evaluation into three different types of characteristics. Number 1, academic. Number 2, financial. And number 3, personal. Academic and financial are going to be the most important things you take into account, but the personal is also important. We want you to be happy where you're going. There may be personal considerations that are just as important as the others. And all of this, we have the goal to find the best option of the university for you. We call it the best fit. It's not one size fits all. There's not one institution that's going to be a good fit for all the students, even in the same area of study. So it's important to take into account that your list will look different from the other members of your cohort, from the other opportunity students, and that's okay. That's actually good. That's what we want. We want it to be just tailor-made for you. After you've gone through these categories of your priorities, then the big task is to research, to explore the options that are available. There are names of universities that we all already know. They're most elite universities in the US, but it's so important that we look beyond that and find universities that none of us may have heard of, but that might really be a good option depending on exactly what you want to study and the types of academic offerings and the types of financial offerings that they have. Throughout this process, it's really important to organize your information because this is, there's so many things to take into account that it's important to have your information accessible and in an orderly fashion so that you can both, number one, remember it, and number two, share it with your advisor. So we're going to give you some tools so that you can do this. Number one really is academic priorities. So some questions that you can take into account we have on the slide, but what we want to transmit with this is really, if an institution isn't a good academic fit at the graduate level, if it doesn't offer you exactly what you want to study, that we really shouldn't consider it as an option. So for example, I know we have a music student who was in our cohort, and say the best music program in the US, is offering scholarships, but they don't have a specific professor who's teaching clarinet, and you happen to be a clarinet player. That program is not going to be a good fit. So it's very important that we find not only good academic offering in terms of classes, but also professors who are working in exactly the same area as you are, who are researching exactly the same thing or nearly the same thing that you want to research, so they can serve as mentors and they can serve as dissertation directors or thesis advisors. That's really, really important at the graduate study level. So to take into account, what is your special focus? What do I want to study? It may be obvious for some of you, and some of you it might not. You might have to think about it a little bit more and do some self-analysis and do some exploration of what makes you happy, what makes you click, and what you want to do after you finish the graduate program. What is your special focus? I just mentioned the profiles of the professors. Really take a look at their research interests and what kind of classes they're teaching and what they are working on currently to see which professors might be able to work with you in the program. Other options for teaching, research, for publishing, for going to conferences and getting involved in this academic world. Maybe for some of you, research is much more important than teaching experience, or vice versa. But figure that out for yourself. What do I care about with my academic experience? What will help me become a better professional and a better researcher and a better teacher once I return to Columbia after my graduate program? And then find the match of programs that have that offering. Also, what size of program am I looking for? Do I want a big program that has a lot of resources and a lot of other classmates from all over the world? Or do I want a smaller program with more personalized attention? There's no right or wrong answer, but this is something that you guys can think about and meditate and really see what would be the best academic environment for you. What kind of requirements does the program ask for? Do they ask for an English exam? All of them will. Do they ask for a GRE exam? Do they ask for years of research experience or years of teaching experience? Specifically, some PhD programs may ask for that. May ask for years of experience as a researcher to be able to apply. So take that into account and then match that with your profile. And finally, what kind of academic infrastructure is available? If you're wanting to research, if you're an engineer and you want to research specific topics, or if you're a chemist and biologist, you need a certain laboratory equipment, does the university have that? Most of them probably will if they offer a program, but it's never it never hurts to check and make sure that what you will need to complete your research and then to graduate on time will be available for you. So number 2, in terms of defining your priorities, is the financial aspect. As you guys know, as opportunity students, we are looking for universities and graduate programs that offer the option of a full tuition scholarship. Most universities will offer some sort of scholarship, assistantship, and it's important that the programs that you choose and the programs that you end up applying to have that offering. Opportunity funds, as you guys know, pays kind of the upfront costs and the costs that are involved in applying, and then once you're accepted, your cost of travel to the U.S. But everything beyond your first month in the U.S. will need to be covered by either the university scholarships or outside funding. And so it's really, really crucial that this is a part of the research process, that you're choosing your institutions from the beginning, that they really have options for full funding as you complete your studies. Take into account both the cost of tuition and living expenses. So it may cover a big part of the tuition, but then remember that living expenses can be anywhere from generally kind of $1,000 to $2,000, sometimes even more, depending on where you live. So can you get some sort of funding or financial package that will also cover your living expenses, your books, your health insurance, these things that really do add up once you are living in the U.S. and being a full-time student. So as I said, most universities do offer some sort of scholarships, and at the graduate level, they generally come in what we call assistantships or fellowships. So this is something where you will work with your specific program or with the department in general, the Department of Physics or the Department of Social Sciences. And you can either get, full tuition possibly or partial tuition. Assistantships work in the following way. So you commit to working, to being an assistant, whether it is a research assistant working with a professor or a teaching assistant where you spend part of your time working with undergraduates and teaching them. You're in the classroom. Or a graduate assistant where you work in more of an administrative role within the department and helping out the administrative processes. But assistantships are really great because they can give you on-the-ground experience. You can get research experience working with a professor, teaching experience working directly with students, and they pay you. It's a really great deal, and they pay you in the form of a tuition waiver. So generally, assistantships you will get your tuition waived, or you will not have to pay una exención de matrícula. And then you also get a small stipend for your living expenses. So one question to ask is, what percentage of the graduate students in this department are receiving assistance, and in what form of assistantship? Is it teaching? Is it research? Is it administrative work? You can also sometimes find some unique opportunities for international students. These might be in the forms of smaller scholarships from the international office, or there might be specific scholarships for students from different regions of the world, from different countries. That's probably not going to cover your whole graduate tuition, but it might be something that might help to cover some of your living expenses in the case that you do not have a stipend for living. It is worth saying, I know there are a couple of you guys who are considering programs possibly in law, such as an LLM, which is a master's in laws. These programs are typically shorter, and they typically don't have as much of an offering of assistantship. So in Colombia, one good thing is that we do have local funding options, so from the local government here in Colombia. And many of our opportunity students who might find partial assistantships at universities that cover a part of the tuition do find money to complete the rest of the tuition and the living expenses through programs such as Colfuturo, through programs like ICETEX, through other types of smaller loans that we may not, it might be hard to cover your whole entire program with a loan from ICETEX, but it is useful to cover part of it. And the idea is that we create a financial package that's based on both funding from the university and then, if necessary, funding from a local source here in Colombia. So the third thing to take into account, and probably the last on the list of importance, are your personal preferences. Once you have, your list of, it checks all the box with the academics, this program completes, fills your wish list for the academic offering and your professors. It offers options for full tuition scholarships. Then think about things like, what's the location like? What's the climate? Do I want to live in an urban area, or do I want to live in a smaller area where the cost of living might be lower? This is something long term too, especially if you're going to a longer program where you might be in a city or a town or a state for 3 or 4 or 5 years if you're in a doctoral program. Compare the access to things like airports or things like big cities versus really having a cost of living that might be affordable on a long-term basis. The picture on the bottom of the screen actually is, I'm in the blue jacket, and this was when I studied at Syracuse University. And we had a ton of international students there, and many of them had saw snow for the first time while we were studying. So it was a really, really cool experience, and I think they really enjoyed that, and it added a personal aspect to the program that in some places in the U.S. where there wasn't snow, they might not have had. So just to keep in mind those types of preferences. In addition, what kind of extracurricular activities or sports are you looking at? What is the campus culture like? I think universities in the U.S. are really unique and special in the sense that, all really have vibrant cultural environments and really have a lot of options to get involved. Specifically as international students, lots of cool clubs and really fun things you can do. Also, if you're married, if you have kids, if you're planning on traveling with your family, what kind of housing options are available for your family? Even if you're traveling alone, is there an option to live on campus? Does the department offer support to help you find housing? Is there some sort of roommate match system that you can use to live off campus? What is more affordable? Again, those kind of questions maybe you should be asking yourself once you are in the later stages, once you have already developed a list of maybe 15 universities, and then you want to start evaluating on a more detailed level. So great. We know we need to take into account academics, finances, personal preferences. How do we start? So the best recommendation that we can give is really to base your search on what are your priorities as a student. You know yourself much better than we advisors do, and we can guide you in certain ways, but it really is about what you are going to get out of the experience. So, number one, look for some publications and academic journals in your area. What are some articles that maybe you read during your undergraduate studies, or some research that you've come across in your academic activities since you graduated, and see who are writing these articles. Who are the professors? Where are they working? Maybe you had an idol as an undergraduate. You read articles by Professor X, and you said, oh, it would be great to study with Professor X. He's at this university in Montana. Well, now you can. You can apply to the universities where your academic idols and your academic, your mentors are actually researching and teaching. So keep that in mind. Really look at the things that grab your attention. There are 2 search engines that we recommend, and they're both really complete and good for doing this type of research. Petersons.com and Gradschools.com. And your advisor can walk through with you how to do each of those search engines, but it's really pretty straightforward. You can filter by your field of study, and then it will show you the different universities that offer graduate programs, either master's or PhD. You can filter by level as well, which universities offer those types of programs. And those search engines are very good. One thing that we get a lot of questions about is, should I base my search on rankings? Rankings are only as good as the ranking system is. And in Education USA, we don't really base a lot of our work on rankings because the many ranking systems are kind of flawed by nature. But some rankings that are done kind of by area of study, for example, PhD rankings that are done specifically by area of study and have a lot of information about quality of research, etc. That might be something to use as one element of your research, but it should not be your only element. Again, we want your list to be tailor-made for you. We want it to be specifically for you as a student, and so that means it really is going to take work on your end. You are going to have to, to put forth some effort and really time. It's not something that okay, I need to turn in my list tomorrow, so I'm going to start researching tonight. No, we really want it to be a process that develops over the course of weeks, even months, so you can start really getting serious about the universities where you'll apply. Your Education USA Advisor is an amazing resource as well to help you structure your study, help you study your search, your research, and then to help you say, okay, well, have you taken this into account? What about this option? All your universities have this in common. Have you taken into account this other thing? And just to emphasize, it's so important to organize your information. So many characteristics that we're going to take into account. So we'll give you a tool here in just a second to help you organize. This is what the Petersons website looks like. So when you go to the petersons.com, you can click Grad School Bound and then follow the instructions to choose whether it's a master's or a PhD, and then your area of study with maybe your specific research interests. Graduate school page, and then you can choose exactly what topics you would like to focus on for your search. This is the list of universities that your search will generate, and so you can go through, visit their websites, and then check. Again, it's once you find universities that might be of interest to you, that offer your area of study, the best recommendation that we have is to go in and actually visit those websites. It's a tedious process. It is a little bit long and tedious, but you go to the website, you go to the page of your graduate program that's interesting to you, and generally there's a list of faculty, and there's a list of assistantship or scholarship options, and then there's a list of maybe your pensum, like your class plan, the classes you would take over the course of your years. And, a lot of this can be done on your own time, on your own, searching through website by website, but also your advisors are there. Their job is to help guide you. And so if you go to a university website and it's just overwhelming and you think, oh, how do I even start? What do I do? Please go to your advisor and say, let's walk through a couple of these together. I need you to help guide me as we're starting this process. So finally, what we sent you guys through email last week, and I can send it again if anyone needs it. It's just a template so you can organize your information. But we want we want you to make this template yours. If there's a category that you want to add, maybe you really, really need to have a specific lab that can research this type of molecules. Add that column. This is supposed to be, as we would say in English, a living document. It's not something that is dead and static. We want you to make this your own. And so some of the information on there is really important. As advisors, we want you to be able to articulate your justification. Why did you choose this school? You have all these columns about number of faculty members and links to financial assistance. But at the end of the day, why is this school one you want to apply to? What about this school is so special, and why do you think you would be happy at this school? So the template is pretty straightforward, and the idea is that you use it and fill it and really interact with the document. And these columns that we have put in are there to help you and to guide you and to really make you think about what you should be looking for in an institution. So that's pretty much all we have. We talked a little bit about what you should take into account: academic, financial, and personal factors, and then some strategies. So, using this template, using your search engines, using your previous academic knowledge, and using your advisor. And I think that, this is something that we really think it's important to start with this as a fundamental basis for the rest of your process this semester, working with advisors, working with Opportunity Fund. We want to give you animo. It can be a tedious process, but it should excite you. You guys are all interested in graduate studies. You're motivated to study in the U.S. That's why we chose you guys. You're excellent students, and you should be seeing these universities and saying, wow, I want to take that class. Wow, that program sounds so interesting. That professor is doing such cool research, and I could be working with her. And so I think that's something that is great in this process too. You can really find institutions that are such a good fit for your skills and your profiles, and we're so excited to see you evolve as students over the next semester. So with that, I will leave you guys. Remember that by Friday the 18th, we want you to post on Facebook a short video, basically saying who you are and what you've done academically and what you hope to do in the U.S. Nothing too complicated, but we want you guys to be able to work together as a cohort to support each other and to get to know each other, even if a lot of it will be virtual. So I'll leave you there. Remember to contact your advisor, contact me if you have any questions at all about choosing your institution and your. Well, please remember to copy Opportunity Fund Colombia at gmail.com on your emails. It's good for us to have a backup in case advisors are out of town or have emergencies where they can't be in the office. So thank you guys so much for your attention, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks.